Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for inviting me. It's a great honor to be here, and thanks for staying on despite the cold. Before we get into what to think about the Ottoman Empire, I'd just like to talk about a paradox I feel when looking at this subject. Most of us in this room are at or have been at Oxford University. I dare say that those of you still studying here are quite enjoying the experience. But here's the thing. To regret the demise of the Ottoman Empire is to choose a world that is run as some kind of eternal Groundhog Day. If you're an undergraduate, say, the question before you tonight is like asking you whether or not you want to carry on living in your student digs forever. I'm sure you would agree with me that the novelty would soon pall. To me, a vote for this motion to regret the demise of the Ottoman Empire, not only counterfactual, but it's a vote never to change, never to develop, never to progress. I put this choice in stark terms to you because I want to underline the point that when we talk about the demise of the Ottoman Empire, we're talking about the fall and collapse of a political construct. A construct like all empires, as our first speaker, Oliver, mentioned, is always based on conquest, coercion, extortion, and elite rule. We are not being asked if we like the style of a particular palace, whether we find the cadences of a certain ghazal poem attractive, whether we find an Iznik tile gorgeous. The question begins and ends with, do we wish that this constitutional arrangement persisted to this day? Our argument is, as I think you have heard from all sides, that it could not have survived and should not have survived. The gallant proponents of the motion have painted charming pictures of various aspects of Ottoman times. Some of them genuinely believe that the Ottoman Empire brought peace, integration, and justice. The reality for its subject populations was really different. Most evidence-based surveys of the Ottoman Empire, present company included, show that there was no Pax Ottomana. Fighting was a constant on the borders of the Ottoman Empire and inside it. As Ayşe Osmanoğlu's fine books illustrate, her own grandparents or ancestors were held prisoner for decades in a palace. To talk about full justice in the Ottoman Empire is very difficult. If you have a law which gives other groups of people second status, minority status, second-class citizens. The empire also often lashed out at other Muslims who happened not to agree with the main Sunni orthodoxy. I'm talking about Alevis or Yazidis. In short, Ottoman pluralism didn't offer equality. It was a strategy for imperial control. Similarly, there was no single Ottoman realm stretching from one side of the world to the other. There was no single Ottoman citizenry. It was a patchwork of peoples, of faiths, of provinces and autonomous satrapies that masked all kinds of inequalities. Foreign visitors to the capital of the Ottoman Empire, Constantinople, now Istanbul, often wrote of their thrill at its cosmopolitan vibrancy. I would like to share with this House the published view of Edem Eldem, a wise academic and another descendant of the Ottoman dynasty. Because of these domestic inequalities and because of oppressive rule, he says the city was always wonderful for foreigners to visit and difficult for its native people to live in, and so difficult for its native people to live in that they often just wanted to leave. I'm sorry that we won't be hearing from Zulfü Livaneli this evening on the proposing team. I feel that, like many of Turkey's intellectual elite, he could only have helped our opposition to the motion before you tonight. Zulfu is a famous writer and singer, and he made a fine film that actually praised Kemal Ataturk, who's the man who deposed these sultans. He's also an outspoken member of Ataturk's Republican People Party. He is a free spirit who sings songs with titles like "O Liberty." He does not compose laments with titles like "Oh, my Lord Sultan, I miss you so much." Turkish sympathy for the Republic is strong indeed. While researching my own book on the country, Turkey Unveiled, I met the late Hümeyra Özbaş, a granddaughter of the last Sultan. She ended her days holding court in the Kismet Hotel on the Aegean coast of Turkey. Hümeyra Sultan told me that many members of her family were actually secretly admiring Kemal Ataturk as he beat the invading forces of Britain, France, and Greece to create a truly independent state of Turkey. Now, there has been a recent fad of films and series in Turkey that portray the early Ottoman sultans as all-conquering heroes. This Neo-Ottomanism is often not historically accurate, but to some extent it succeeds in its aim. This is to add a veneer of glamour and legitimacy to the current Turkish government and its strongman leader. That's why the phenomenon of Neo-Ottomanism should not be taken as evidence of any Turkish regret for the past. The only regret that I personally feel is the way the Turkish authorities have made some historic parts of Istanbul, like Eyüp, look like a kind of Ottoman Disneyland. They have stripped centuries-old patina from the mosques and scrubbed them as clean as shopping malls. This is just another way to manufacture an Ottoman-themed endorsement for strong central rule. That's why the current government of Turkey, and not all its people, will probably be voting with the eyes tonight. Don't just take it from me. In the 100 top-grossing films of all time in Turkey, there's only one with such an Ottoman theme. It's called Conquest 1453. Despite having one of the biggest budgets in Turkish cinema history, it comes in only at number 48. There is one minor Turkish film, The Ottoman Republic, that imagines what the country might have looked like had Ottoman rule survived. It's a farcical comedy. The Sultan is presented as a bumbling incompetent, and the country is a small, unimportant stretch of Anatolia under US mandate and European control. Again, no regrets here. As you listen to the other side, please remember all of us who have spoken about the dozens of peoples and countries that emerged from the debris of the Ottoman Empire. In none of them, Arabs, Serbs, Greeks, Bulgars, Yazidis, Alevis, is there any sign of significant nostalgia for its demise. Of course, there is admiration of today's Turkey in the region. Turkish Airlines flies to more places than any other airline. Turkey's diplomatic outposts around the world rival those of the US and China. Turkish companies build metros, shopping malls, and seem to make half the kitchen appliances in the whole region. But that's all the result of Republican Turkey having broken with its past. Even the Turks do not regret the Ottomans' passing. For sure, invasions by Britain, France, Russia, and Greece a century ago made the transition to the Republic bloody and deeply traumatic. But the overall improvements since then are so clear that I could find no polls on the question we are discussing tonight. I could, however, find a 2024 Pew Research survey of what Turks think today. 56% of them would, if they could and the Europeans would let them, join the European Union. Sounds to me like they've all moved on. Let's probe a little deeper. Who is doing the regretting that we are so earnestly debating? I suppose we might imagine ourselves the right-minded people of the world, but we speak of this house. This house is in many ways a descendant of another empire, the British one. Many politicians who ran that empire sharpened their rhetorical skills in this same chamber. The British forces under their command played a critical role in bringing down the Ottoman Empire, and the last Sultan slipped out of Istanbul in 1922 aboard a British battleship. This house must therefore be honest with itself. Yes, there may have been brief tactical alliances between Britain and the Ottoman Empire, as during the Crimean War, but these British policies had little to do with the inhabitants of the Ottoman Empire itself. These were about domestic politics, commercial interests, and the goals of superpower diplomacy like building British maritime power and limiting the reach of Russia. An institution like this House, so entwined with the British establishment, cannot airily undo the past and easily regret the demise of an empire it helped to destroy. Tonight, you may hear counterfactual imaginings about how the Middle East might have remained more peaceful if only the Ottoman Empire had remained in control. Please put these fanciful ideas to one side. Wars and uprising were endemic. Indeed, the Ottoman Empire had already shown it could not resist early pressure from the two biggest drivers of Middle East conflict in the 20th century, the creation of the State of Israel and the lust for Western control over Middle Eastern oil. What this House should be channeling, rather than supporting the empires which have been so ably criticized by my previous speakers, is the naturally egalitarian, collaborative instincts of our fellow humans. Seeing the yes and no format of the debates in the House tonight makes me feel even more strongly that we should be moving on from this binary, polarized dueling about policies. We should be trying to create new structures for decision-making around the world, like, for instance, randomly selected citizens' assemblies. We shouldn't be trying to regret the fall of empires. We should be urging humanity forward on its journey from point-scoring debates to deliberation in the public interest, from inherited hierarchies to full equality, and from empire to self-government. So I appeal to this House to reject this motion. Let the past, what was, frankly, a not-so-attractive past, please vote for all of us to be free and to embrace a more equal and democratic future. Thank you very much.